Why does chaos so often push leaders into poor decision making or fear-based leadership patterns?
It literally puts your brain in fear. So it's
Yeah.
neuroscience. Really, for folks out there, like an easy tool that I use with my clients to just do something quickly. Of course, it doesn't substitute the deeper work, but just to quickly is if you notice that uncertainty or that fear or that stress or some like frustration or anger or sadness, like these kind of things, is to just take a deep breath in and just say, I'm human. And just acknowledge that you feel things. And
When chaos hits, even the best leaders can slip into fear-based decisions and reactive habits. In a world where uncertainty keeps escalating, the real competitive advantage comes from how you manage the internal storm before addressing the external one. Joining us today is Rob Kalwarowsky, a world-renowned executive coach, best-selling author of Capitalizing on Chaos, and MIT-trained high-performance strategist who's coached Fortune 500 leaders and Olympic gold medalists. We're going to be talking about why chaos often leads to poor leadership and what it means to address your inner chaos first. As well, how you can turn disruption into your strongest edge. If you're an engineer or AEC leader determined not just to survive change, but also to lead powerfully through it, this conversation is going to give you clarity, mindset, and tools to do just that. But before we jump in, I want to tell you about the AEC PM Connect event, the premier event where AEC firm leaders explore real-world strategies to drive performance, empower teams, and lead with purpose. And here's the exciting part. At this event, we'll be announcing the winners of the AEC PM Awards, recognizing professionals who lead with purpose and deliver measurable results. Just imagine someone from your firm being named AEC PM of the Year. That kind of recognition can boost your people, your culture, and your firm's reputation in a big way. This event will be taking place on June 10th, 2026 at the Forest Gate Country Club in New Jersey. You can register at aecpmconnect.com. And if you want to nominate someone for the awards, head over to aecpmawards.com to download the nomination guide before the deadline, which is on February 28th. I'm your host, Rebecca Swaby, and this is the AEC Leadership Podcast, previously the Engineering Career Coach Podcast. Let's dive in. Rob, welcome to our show.
thanks for having me, Rebecca. I'm excited to jump on and chat some chaos.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I noticed you're in a very peaceful location. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that just before we start talking about chaos.
Yeah, so folks are watching this. In the background, you'll see some nice palm trees and some jungle. And I'm down in Costa Rica, and my wife and I moved down here about 2.5 years ago as part of reducing some external chaos, and that your environment does absolutely impact your own internal chaos. And so it's a little bit of both, and we'll dig more into that,
We're
but
going to
it's a
dig
bit
more
of
into
both.
it. This is a topic I'm very excited to discuss with you. But just to get started, can you tell our listeners about yourself? How did you get started in the world of leadership and high performance coaching?
Yeah, so I'm Rob Kalwarowsky. I'm from Ottawa, Canada. I was born and raised as the classic overachiever. My parents were all about like getting straight A's and getting into good school and then getting the good job and then the career path and then the house with a wife, 1.5 kids, and you know, that
Yes.
thing. And so I took that on and pretty early in life. And yeah, I was doing well in school. Then I started playing water polo, and then I got really serious into that. I was on the junior national team, and then I went to MIT for mechanical engineering with a minor in management. And once I graduated, I was like, here we go. Like, this is how the world works. It's just like you work hard and you deliver, and then you get like recognition, you get validation, you get like the awards that come with that. And I was dropped into a mining company in Western Canada, and that was not how it went.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and so, like, in college, like, I took management classes, and they were like, all that companies care about is profit.
Mhm.
right? And so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to use what I can to generate the most amount of profit that I can. And I did that in the first year working there. I saved them tens of millions of dollars. And I was like, okay, well, that means I should get like a big raise and I should get moving and all these things. And the work environment was the classic, we've always done it this way, don't rock the boat. And then also my manager was passive aggressive. And I didn't know this at the time, but he was also trying to people please his boss. And
Mm,
so the standards were changing daily.
mm.
And for me, it's like I'm trying to shoot on the net, but I don't know where the net is, and the net keeps moving, and you're missing the net.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it makes
that,
sense.
yeah, and that overachieving, I called him Robot Rob, which is just like, it was just a robot. It was like, stuff it down, work harder. That's all you do. And like, it started getting upset. And it was like, Rob, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you
Mm,
winning?
mhm.
If you're not winning, if you're not achieving, then who are you? And that's a slippery slope that led into depression. And then ultimately in 2013, I tried to take my own life.
Wow. That is scary.
And you kind of like in movies and in books and all these things, they're like, when you hit rock bottom, like that's the moment. Right? You quit your job, you move to the beach and you start your surfing life.
Yeah.
And in reality, that wasn't how it went. I woke up the next morning and Robot Rob came back and I
Mm,
got dressed and I went to work.
mm.
And consciously, like logically, I was like, I knew my job was killing me. And yet I couldn't change because the robot was like, well, you have to make money to be a person. You have to achieve to be a person. Without doing these things, you're nothing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that was the chaos that was internal that was showing up for me. And it
Mm,
took me years to find the right path to heal. But as I was on those extra years, I was doing consulting and I went to, 50 different facilities, mining, oil and gas, uh, manufacturing, pulp and paper. And I started seeing folks that were also disengaged and who also weren't happy in their jobs and who also were suffering from poor leadership practices. And when I started healing myself, I was like, well, I need to help those people because they're like me.
mhm.
And by helping their leaders become better, they'll feel better. And that's not just me saying that. That's like there's data to back that up. Like happy leaders create happy, engaged workforces who are more productive, more profitable, less sick days, like they turn over, like all the good things happen when you
Mhm.
have happy people. And it really starts with leadership. And so that's where I got into that. And then since then, I've completely changed my life. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's, an incredible story, and there's so many things that we can dive deep to from what you've shared. It sounds like, growing up, there was a clear set of rules, do your best and you win. External validation is all that matters, right? And then things started to shift when you were in a situation where it just wasn't logical what was happening with your boss to some extent, right? You said the rules were shifting and they were being passive aggressive. And would you say that was the point when, things started to get darker and more negative in your experience? And that was a bit of a turning point?
Yeah. Like often we identify or we learn as children to identify ourselves with external things.
Mhm.
And even now, it's like when like I was at a couple conferences the last few weeks, and I'm like, "How's it going? Like, tell me about you." And people are like, "I am a engineer, or I'm a project manager, or I'm a business analyst, or I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a venture capitalist." And it's like, well, that's your job.
Mhm.
That's not you,
Yeah.
right? And so we see this a lot, especially like I have some clients who are, they're recently lost their jobs and they're like looking for new ones. And it's like, or I see this sometimes with like folks who retire is they lose what they think is their identity.
Mm.
And that's when you always have that sort of crisis, but it's normal and it's totally fixable because and this is why on the front of my book, I put a phoenix rising from the ashes
Mhm.
is when you lose that identity, it feels catastrophic. But from that is where you can truly learn who you are. You can truly expand your life and start to take advantage of possibilities that didn't exist before. Like if you would
Mm.
ask me like 6 years ago, Rob, you'd be living in Costa Rica and like you would have written a book and you would have done a TED talk, like I wouldn't have believed you,
Mhm.
right? It just wasn't even possible. But
Mhm.
as you sort of deconstruct those basically the masks that you're wearing to find who you truly are, once you get to that, that's when the transformation can take off and you can literally choose to do whatever you want and the sky's the limit.
It sounds like there's a lot of freedom on the other side of things, of
Yeah.
these struggles. Yeah, yeah. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the healing journey? It sounded like it took a long time, and there was many low points and many, returning to the mindset of Robot Rob, at least at the beginning. How did that look? How did it look to heal?
Yeah. Like with most, I mean, obviously I had severe mental illness, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of like you need professional help. I needed I had a therapist, I had a psychiatrist, I had a coach. I was like hammering at work, right?
Mhm.
With most of my clients, it's not that. It's like maybe you're just not super happy in your job, or like I had a client last year and he's a CEO of a sign manufacturing company. And he came to me and he was just burnt out. Like he was working all the time and he was doing everything and he was like micromanaging his team. And he wanted to scale his company. And so he was working like crazy to do it, but it wasn't growing. Like they were stuck at 3 million for 3 years. And it was like he had identified himself as what I call like a DIY mask, do it all yourself.
Mhm.
And so, like, you hear things like if people are listening and you kind of feel that, you'll say things like, well, I would delegate, but it's faster if I do it myself. Or I have to do it my way and the other person won't do it right. Or if they do it, they'll get it wrong. And like, if you find or resonate with some things like that, this is like a very common part that I work with. And it's
Mhm.
like it took us 4 sessions really. And in the 4th session, like he was able to break through it and he had the realization moment and he said to me, Rob, I'm the one holding my company back. And then that was when we started working on, okay, now that you don't have to do it all yourself, how do we effectively delegate? How do we empower people? And like, yeah, how do we build that trust back that was lost because you were leaning in too much?
Right. Yeah, that's
And then
definitely
it
I was
like,
gonna say as a startup founder, it's definitely relatable, but even thinking back to my time in the, civil engineering consulting industry, I think engineers in general, we do have a tendency to just think we can do it all ourselves. There's some satisfaction in that as well, but as you very rightly pointed out, there's limitations of what we can do, and sometimes we suffer because we try to keep it all on our own plate, and so yeah.
the thing is, Rebecca, right, is like with all of these things, they help you until they don't,
Mhm.
right? And so, like for this CEO or like entrepreneur, He started his company 6 years ago with 2 people, him and his co-founder. And so, yeah, you gotta do it all because there's nobody else, right? But then when you're 30 people and 3,000,000 and you wanna grow, you cannot be doing the things that you're doing that are the same that you did in day 1.
Mhm.
And so it takes that evolution, and now you have to become a leader and strategic and about how do I get my company out there to scale,
Yeah,
right? And that's
absolutely.
a different type of skill set than it is to be
A
some
contributor.
version of of an individual contributor. And
Yeah.
so, like, with the engineers out there, it's like when you're an individual SME, it's like, yes, a lot of the things you need to do yourself. However, I would recommend you talk to people and bring that in because a lot of your job is also about changing the way people do things. And so
Mhm.
you need to influence others. But
Mhm.
also then when you become an engineering manager, it's a different job. And so you have to upgrade your skills to become the leader versus I do this specific task.
Right. That makes total sense. So you're really good at recognizing now, chaos when people are suffering individually as well as within a workplace. I'd love to hear more about how would you describe the current state of chaos in today's workplace, especially as it relates to AEC leaders or AEC firms.
Chaos is unprecedented right now. And so the World Uncertainty Index is a statistic that tracks how many times the word uncertainty or chaos is used in government documents around the world.
Hmm.
And today, compared to the height of the pandemic, is almost double. It's 80%, 87% higher today than it was at the height of the pandemic.
Wow. Okay.
Compared to the fall of 2024, we are 330% higher. Chaos has never been as high in the history of that measurement ever.
Hmm.
We see it. We see it in the economy. We see it in the geopolitical atmosphere. We
Yeah.
see it with technology, with AI just disrupting a lot of different things that we thought were standard. We see it in our businesses and like our sales process or our customers or deliverables. We see it in hiring and firing. We see it in, these large tech companies are laying off hundreds of thousands of people and yet posting record profits.
Hmm.
It's everywhere.
Hmm.
And the key here is this is a moment in time for everybody who's listening. What usually happens when we're in chaos is our brain gets stressed and frustrated. And it's natural. And we
Yeah.
get the stress responses, which is fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Like literally, our amygdala hijacks the front of our brain, the executive functioning that's designed for decision making, logic, emotions, like basically good decisions and good leadership
Hmm.
is all gone.
It's not working. Yeah.
And we're left with becoming a bad leader and making bad decisions. And so this is an opportunity for everybody out there because this is the greatest moment in time where if you can learn how to capitalize on chaos, you will surpass your competitors. You will get promoted faster. You will take advantage of this unprecedented time and create the life you want to live.
Hmm.
Or you'll miss the opportunity and someone else will do it.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
In the AEC industry, skilled project managers are the backbone of success. EMI's AEC PM certification offers tailored training, ongoing support, and exclusive access to premium content that keeps your team sharp and effective. From foundational training to advanced leadership tools, set your team apart with certified growth. Learn more at aecpm.com. That's aecpm.com.
And I'd love to talk more about capitalizing on chaos. Just before we do, you've touched on it a little bit, but tell us more. Why does chaos so often push leaders into poor decision-making or fear-based leadership patterns?
It literally puts your brain in fear. So it's
Yeah.
neuroscience. And really for folks out there, like an easy tool that I use with my clients to just do something quickly. Of course, it doesn't substitute the deeper work, but just to quickly is if you notice that uncertainty or that fear or that stress or some like frustration or anger or sadness, like these kind of things, is to just take a deep breath in and just say, I'm human. And just acknowledge that you feel things and a lot of other people feel those things too. And it's completely normal. And then choose to make a decision. Because then at least you can give yourself less stress so you can make a better decision.
Yeah. It
Otherwise,
sounds so simple,
yeah.
but in some ways, your defaults might be the opposite of it, right? You still have to make a decision either way, but one might just contribute to more negative thought patterns, like the way that you're framing it, versus starting with that framing of, but I'm a human. It's okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm sorry if I cut you off there. Was there something else you wanted to add to the end?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So tell me, what does it mean for leaders to address their inner chaos first? Why is that essential before you attempt to lead others?
It's clear, right? You just asked the question, right? Why do leaders resort to fear-based leadership? It's not their fault. It's neuroscience. However, if you get on top of your internal chaos and you create inner peace and self-leadership, which really means that you're the one in control, not the fear, then that opens you up to be an effective leader, regardless of what's going on externally. Right. And so this is when you're not in the fight and flight response, you're just in you at your best. And that's when you have access to things like courage and confidence and clarity and empathy and persistence and perspective. And that makes you a great leader because empathy is there's a bunch of different sources for this, but empathy basically is the number one skill that creates a high performing workplace right now. And if we look at Gallup and we're looking at like employee engagement, the top 5 things that build employee engagement, one is having a caring manager, which you cannot do when you're in fight or flight. It's developing your people, which again, if you're in fight or flight, you don't care about developing them. You care about get me a result now. It's basically leaning into those people's strengths, giving them constant feedback and coaching and like work basically caring and working with them to get along their career path. None of those things you can do when you're in fear. And so if you want to be the best leader you can be, the internal chaos is the first step because that is the only way that your brain will even allow you to be able to do the things that build employee engagement. And go to gallup.com and look at the results from employee engagement. Literally, you will have higher productivity, profitability, higher customer satisfaction, less mistakes, better well-being. Like there's like 15 different statistics that are all good. And so it is the greatest win-win-win in history. And it just starts with you taking action first, and then that spreads into your team.
That's so interesting, those Gallup statistics, especially around leading with empathy. Do you think that most leaders are aware that this is the latest research on how to be a good leader? Like, how does that work with or against maybe some of the conventional ways of thinking about work in the AEC environment, which is often about deadlines, being overloaded with work, profitability. Like there's a lot of scary things that can be hanging over your head as a leader or an individual contributor. So how do some of those findings align or not with the kind of work that we do?
So the deadlines and the expectations, empathy doesn't mean that you don't hold people accountable to high performance, right? And so, like, if you look at a coach like Andy Reid, right, of the Kansas City Chiefs, he doesn't allow his players to slack off or not do the work or just do whatever they want, right? However, he clearly cares about each and every one of them and he demonstrates empathy for them, right? And so it's actually, if you show you're a caring manager to somebody, it means you also care about their performance and you're going to hold them to a high standard.
Hmm.
It's actually hurtful if you just basically go, I don't care what you do. And, you can just do whatever you want or you can slack off. Right. And so I think that's a really big misnomer is that being an empathetic leader is quote unquote soft and you don't get
Hmm.
results. Like, I think some people think that, but really that's just a fear based part of them, which is like, they're afraid to look weak or they're afraid to um what is the consequences if they don't deliver the results. And ultimately, if you want to get the best results, you have to work on that inner fear so then you can actually become a better leader, which will get you the results. Now, maybe that work will take you a bit longer, but also like the fear-based leadership is only a short-term strategy because eventually it doesn't impact them any longer.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I love it when, these best practices, they show up in other things that are part of our lives, like sport, like the example that you gave. And being a Canadian, I have to ask if you were following the Blue Jays run. And just maybe this will get edited out, but what I think really struck me and a lot of the fans that were listening that jumped on the bandwagon near the end as they made it into the World Series was just how empathetic the team was all to each other, the management, the players, everybody was so supportive and they were winning together as a team. So yeah, it's just reminding me that there's some amazing examples that we can look to across the line.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Often, like, sports require you to win,
Mhm.
right? That's the game. And in the engineering business, it's not too different, right? The difference really is in sports is there's a scoreboard.
Mhm.
And in some engineering positions, there's no scoreboard, right? And so if you want to look at sports as a model of this is how you win, and we can prove that they're winning because one team beats another team or one team wins the championship and the other one doesn't, like flat out, they have to be at their peak. And with the Blue Jays, right, it's like for them building a supportive environment worked. They were one of the best teams in baseball. And so it proves the case that, I mean, it doesn't prove it, but it's an anecdote that it does
Mhm.
work. And
Mhm.
I think once you start looking at other teams, you can see this too.
Mhm. Okay, great. Well, let's talk about capitalizing on chaos now, or more about that. Tell me, how can leaders transform chaos into a strategic advantage for their teams and their organizations?
The biggest way to do this, right, is through innovation. Because what happens is if you want to be successful, especially in this moment in time, you want to be thinking differently than everybody else. And everybody else, for the most part, is unsure what they're going to do. They're turtling up in fear. maybe they're pulling back from spending money. There's a lot of that going on. They're cutting people, they're cutting resources, they're pulling back. If you want to truly win, you need to innovate. And that doesn't necessarily mean you need to spend money.
Mhm.
But if you engage your team, you can actually multiply your workforce without actually hiring anybody. And so the average engagement is roughly 21%. And so if you're leading a team of 10, basically 2 people are working hard. Everybody else is sort of like, meh, right? And so literally you, by doing those 5 behaviors or like becoming a caring leader that drives their people, you can more than double your workforce without actually hiring anybody.
Okay.
And so think about that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is this: happy employees are 300% more innovative than not.
Yeah.
And so if you want to win, if you want to capitalize on chaos, it's on you as the leader to take the action today to become a better, to get in control of your inner chaos so you can build a team that's far more productive and far more innovative. And that's how you'll win. And that's how you'll be successful in this moment. Because if you don't do it now, someone else is doing it and you're going to miss out on an opportunity of a lifetime.
Wow. That's incredible. I would have never thought of it that way, but it makes so much sense. And we have strategies for every other area of the business. Why not strategize here as well, especially when the impact is so striking?
And here's another stat for you, Rebecca, right? Is the direct manager is 70% of the variance in employee engagement. So it's not the CEO, it's not the board, it's not the folks on the executive board. It is literally the manager who's your direct boss, or if you're the boss, it's your impact on your team directly is most of it. So you need to take action, not somebody else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Most of the experience, interacting with the team, guiding the team is going to be through your direct manager. And so why would it be anybody else, right? Like that's the person that's tasked with shaping your experience and leading you. So that's good to hear. Are there any practical tools, habits, mindsets, or anything else that leaders can use to build resilience, improve the clarity, and even make better decisions when things are chaos, when there's chaos and uncertainty?
Absolutely. So I'm human is the best, quickest tool that you can have.
Mhm.
I also have another tool that your listeners are welcome to get for free. So if they go to robkalwarowsky.com/reason, they can download the Find Your Reason tool. And this tool is designed to help you overcome status quo. And a lot of what is hard with change is people want to naturally not change. The reason for that is literally neuroscience again. Is change is uncertain. And uncertainty means we can't predict that we're going to be safe and alive, which puts
Mhm.
our brain again to that stress.
Mhm.
However, if we don't change, we miss out on the opportunity to capitalize on chaos. And so this tool will help folks. One is it's going to help you set your goals and write them down, which right there increases your probability of achieving them. If you share that goal, you can share that sheet with me or with your friend, your partner, a colleague at work, whatever it is. If you share it with one person, you will immediately increase your probability of achieving it to 70%, which is probably the best thing you can do in 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And then also, it's designed to help you with identifying things that are not great in the status quo. And that's going to help you overcome the status quo bias so then you can get moving. And so, just by using this tool, which will take you somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, one is it'll take you 70% chance of achieving your goals. And also, it will give you the internal motivation to get moving towards it. So it's a very powerful tool that you can use in a quick amount of time. And I mean, it's free. So get
It's
it.
free. It's 5 minutes. It's transformative. That's sounds like a great resource. I'm going to check it out after this and maybe even fit that in today with my team.
There
Thank you
you
for
are.
sharing that. All right. Well, this has been a great conversation, but I would love to hear if you have any final advice that you'd like to share with AEC leaders who are looking to strengthen their leadership, especially during challenging times.
I mean, the advice is this. Don't let this once in a lifetime opportunity pass you by. This is the moment. There's no better moment. This chaos is at all-time highs.
Mhm.
And you have this moment where you can make massive gains that other people aren't going to get because they're not taking action. And so go to my website, get the Find Your Reason tool, fill it out, start taking action, and then book a call with me. And I can help you, and we can move this forward, and we can create what you want to create. Because again, it's like if you don't take advantage of it right now, it could be gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, fantastic advice. Thank you so much for that. And thank you again for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Rebecca.
Please remember you can find the show notes for this episode at aecleadershippodcast.com. There you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as any links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during the podcast.